Welcome to AI Horror Stories. Prepare to be chilled. Subscribe now and hit that notification bell for daily doses of AI-generated fright. I'm sure you have a fear of something. Ghosts, made-up creatures, weird noises in the middle of the night, or perhaps the lingering feeling of something watching you in the corner of your room. It's hard to believe that those things never bothered me until I heard about the girl called Bloody Mary. One sunny morning, Violet woke up like any other day and wobbled tiredly to her bathroom. She did her usual routine, brushing her teeth and fixing her hair. She restlessly put her school uniform on and skipped downstairs. The house was quiet, and that's just how she liked it. Since her parents were highly professional workers, they were always gone and on the move. She hardly sees them. They get assigned to travel to France, London, and other parts of the world for a project, which means they're hardly there for Violet. But she eventually got used to it, but of course it took some time to get used to. After breakfast, she skipped to the door and opened it. She would turn around and say goodbye as if someone was there watching her. CYA, I'll be back soon. She closed the door with a smile and headed off to school. Her school wasn't far from her house. It was a few streets away. As she came to the entrance of the school, she heard someone calling out her name. Violet! Violet! She heard her name getting louder and louder. Violet quickly turned around and bumped into a girl. Ow, Vio! Didn't you hear me calling out your name? Violet took a deep sigh of relief. Hey, Laura. Sorry, I was zoned out. Let's just go to class. You don't seem like yourself today, Laura said in a worryingly and concerned tone. I'm not a morning person, Laura, she said, looking at the ground as she walks to the school entrance. Violet and Laura go their separate ways and headed to their lockers. Violet saw a group of people walking by. She overheard them say, Hey, have you noticed that a few people haven't come to school after they did that Bloody Mary thing? Violet's stomach twisted and turned from the name she had just heard, but she was unsure as to why she felt that way. Violet was curious about what might have happened, but she had a bad feeling. A few classes later, it was lunchtime. Violet hung out with Laura most of the time. Most of the students at the school thought that she was weird and awkward. However, Laura didn't listen to them. As Laura was explaining about how boring her maths class was, the school bully came up to them with a couple of his friends. He looked down at them like they were his peasants. Hey, look, it's Tweedledee and Tweedledum, he said with a big evil grin. What do you guys want? Don't you have better things to do? Said Laura in fury. Whoa. Calm down, T-Deal, we just came here to ask you if you know the story about Bloody Mary, he said, turning to his friends and smiled. No, but I'm interested. Tell me more, said Violet in curiosity. T-Dum, I don't expect you to know. She is a girl who haunts people and do horrible things to people who call upon her. Bloody Mary scares scared little girls like you so bad that it kills them, but they don't know how she does it. He suddenly stops and chuckles. Well, obviously no one would know how she does it because anyone who experienced it are all dead. Violet didn't like where this was going and wished she hadn't asked him. He continued, So let's make a deal. I want you to say her name 3 times in front of a mirror, any mirror, with the lights off for 1 minute. If you do that, I will stop taking your lunch money and stop bothering you too. Violet's eyes widened in shock. No way. As if we would do something like that. The bully smirked. If you don't do this, I will tell everyone in the school that you like Stanley Knuckleberry. If it helps, you can light up 1 candle so you can go through the whole minute without getting scared. Violet paused for a moment and looked over to Laura. Violet was speechless. All she could think about was Stanley and how horribly he would react if he knew about she felt towards him. Her eyes started to water. She angrily thought to herself how he knew this information about her feelings towards Stanley. Laura jumped out of her chair and pointed at the bully. We'll do it. Right after school. You'll see, we aren't scared. Violet looked up at Laura in awe and rubbed her tears away. She knew she had to be stronger than this. The bully nodded and left, but then he paused. Oh, and who said anything about we? I forgot to mention that only Violet can do it. If by chance you do this with a friend, I will tell the whole school about your little secret. Make sure it's done at 7 p.m. sharp. Violet Ascent worried about doing it alone. She was always alone at home, so it didn't make a difference. Agreed, she said with no hesitation. However, Laura was afraid something bad would happen. As the school day ended, Laura walked Violet home and reassured her that if anything goes wrong, she should call her. Violet was glad she had a friend like Laura. As Laura said her goodbyes and hugged Violet, she glanced up at Violet's second-floor window. For a few seconds, she thought she saw a dark and eerie figure standing by the curtains. Laura blinked and it disappeared. Though, Laura knew Violet was home alone and thought nothing of it. As she was leaving, she thought to herself that it was probably her mind playing tricks. As Violet reached out for the handle, she felt had goosebumps rushing down her spine, as if it was a warning to stay away. She shook that feeling off and opened the door. "I'm home," she said with a smile. The door slammed behind her. "Must be the wind," she said nervously whilst locking the door behind her. Violet stopped and was confused. She took a sniff of the house and realized there's a rotting stench. She closed her nose in disgust and opened all the windows. Where the hell is that coming from? She searched the house for anything odd, but she couldn't find anything. When she was heading to the kitchen, she heard a door creak open behind her. She slowly turned her head to the guest room door. "That's funny. I thought Mum locked that door before she left." She remembered her mum telling her that room was off limits. She was told that it was only used for when her work colleagues come over for a meeting. She slowly walks up to the door and looked through the crack. All she could see was a couple of furniture covered with white sheets. She did notice an odd shape behind the curtains. It seemed like there was someone standing behind it. Violet's heart began to pace quickly, hoping that she was just hallucinating. Suddenly, the door completely shuts on her face. She scarcely took a step back, rubbing her nose. What the hell? She opened the door and saw nothing behind the curtain. She sighed with relief and laughed at herself. Violet thought it was the wind again and closed all the windows. She went to the kitchen and made herself dinner. She switched the TV on and ate on the dinner table. Whilst she was eating, she couldn't help but look over her shoulder to the long mirror hanging on the wall. She finished her plate of what was filled with spaghetti bolognese. She then went up to her room and changed into her pajamas. Violet started her English homework and couldn't keep her eye off her clock. It was too distracting knowing that she was 2 hours away from having to stare at a mirror in the dark. She kept looking at the time. Violet found herself on the urge of falling asleep. Out of nowhere, she heard whispers throughout the house along with footsteps. Violet thought she was just dreaming and tried to ignore it. Violet tossed and turned and felt like someone was watching her. She opened her eyes and found Bloody Mary right before her eyes. Her hair was pitch black. She had black rotten teeth and her eyes were pitch black. Everything about her was darkness. However, what really caught her eye was her bloody dress. Bloody Mary stood there with her body. Crooked Violet yelled her lungs out but got cut off as she was stabbed. She looked down at her punctured stomach, which appears to be by her kitchen knife. Violet woke up screaming and took a long, hard breath. She looked around in panic whilst grabbing her chest and took a sigh of relief. It's just a dream. She fell back into her bed. It's nearly time. Violet bolted up and looked around her bedroom again. Her heart started racing and her breathing was unstable. Just a dream? Yep. She looked over to the clock. 6:30 p.m. It's almost time. She got up and went through all the drawers to find her camera so she could record herself for evidence. She found a candle, matches, and a flashlight just in case. She grabbed herself a cup of water to help her relieve her stress. She collected all the things she needed and paused. She just realized what we was doing and felt her stomach churn. She kept telling herself she can do it and that it wasn't real. She walked towards the bathroom door and shivered. She quickly opened the door and put everything on her black marble bench. She set up the camera, lit the candle, and looked at her watch. 6:55 p.m., she whispered to herself. Stanley, you better be worth it. She drank her water and put the glass cup down. She closed the door behind her and turned the light switch off. Violet looked towards the mirror with her hands resting on the bench. A few minutes went by and she couldn't bring herself to do it. She was about to blow her candle out and give up when suddenly her candle blew out on its own. She squealed and turned the light on. "No, I can do this." She lit the candle again and looked at herself in the eyes through the mirror. She had a bad feeling something was going to happen and clenched her teeth. Regardless of how she felt, she switched the light off anyway. Okay. Let's just get this over and done with." She cleared her throat. In a confident yet doubtful tone, she said, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." Violet began to breathe heavily and checked her watch every second to see if it was a minute yet. It was as if time was slowing down. She started sweating and heard people whispering again. It was getting closer and closer, traveling throughout the house. Whilst Violet was impatiently waiting, she heard a shatter. Violet was confused at first but then she felt pain in her stomach. By then she made it to 1 minute and rushed to the lights. She turned the lights on and looked at her reflection in the mirror to see what has happened. Her glass cup wasn't where it was. She looked down at the ground and found blood and shards of glass. Due to her shock, she couldn't scream. Only tears left her eyes. She looked at her stomach and found that she was stabbed with a large piece of glass from the cup. How did this happen? She leaned onto the bathroom bench and looked at the mirror. She saw a blurry figure. At first she couldn't see. Violet rubbed her eyes with her blood-covered hands and saw Bloody Mary smirking at her. "Bloody Mary!" she whispered to herself in disbelief. At first, Violet was speechless. She looked for a route of escape or help and realized that her phone was downstairs on the kitchen table. She started to cry whilst grabbing her camera and stumbled her way out of the bathroom. She slipped and fell on the floor from her own blood. She avoided looking back and crawled her way to the stairs. Violet forced herself to get up on her feet using the walls next to her to help her up. She eventually looked back towards the bathroom where she saw Bloody Mary crawling out of the mirror, following her. She rushed her way down the stairs to grab her phone to get some help. She couldn't help but look back again. To her surprise, Bloody Mary wasn't behind her anymore. She cried in pain as she stumbled down the stairs yelling in pain, "Somebody help me!" Violet's neck twisted and cracked and pushed down the flight of stairs. She landed on the floor, covered in bruises. Her leg was broken. A piece of her bone was piercing out of her skin. Violet lost a lot of blood and slowly died at the bottom of her staircase. 1 month later, Violet's parents came home and found their daughter's rotten body. Her mother yelled in horror and her father fell to his knees crying. Violet, who did this to you? Why didn't I come back sooner? I am so sorry," shouted her mother in tears. It was too late. She's died alone, painfully without anybody knowing. At the time, Laura was worried after the first week of not seeing Violet at school. Surprisingly, a few weeks later, Laura and everyone at school eventually forgot about her. Of course, there were rumors about her for quite some time, just like the rest of the bloody murder stories. Most students believed she left school. Others thought she died. Even the bully forgot about the bet he made with Violet. The investigators of Violet's murder never found the killer due to the lack of evidence such as fingerprints or sign of break-in. It took investigators several years, but the case eventually went cold. The camera was broken into pieces, but the memory card was missing. However, Violet's death wasn't the last. Bloody Mary was still causing death to other people in town. When will it end? They all thought I was gone, a story gone old, but they were wrong. They probably wanted me gone so they wouldn't have to waste their time on me. But I'm back now with a purpose. That purpose is to show how much sorrow I've endured since my death. The people who were in my life will pay. All I want is revenge. I've watched them live. They were so happy in their own little family. I wanted a family too. My parents were too busy traveling around the world because of their jobs. It saddened me not being able to see them and experience a good childhood. I can barely remember what having a family felt like, let alone having a friend I could trust. Laura seemed to be a great friend, but even greater at not caring and forgetting. I wanted to love. I never had time for that. I was still young. I can never have that chance ever again since I'm, dead. My life was taken from me in the blind of an eye. The only good thing that came from my death is my ability to see and communicate with ghosts. However, they don't seem to speak much or show any real emotion. All they do is walk around and mourn. I find that quite boring. When I died, my body was left on the cold, wooden floor, but not my soul. I found myself standing in front of my lifeless, injured body with disbelief. I looked up from my body to the top of the stairs. There she was, Bloody Mary, staring at me with a smirk. I screamed at her on. I was furious. What do you want from me? What did I ever do? It's all your fault. I fell to my knees, crying. I heard a whisper near my ear. Silly girl, whatever do you mean? You are the one who called me, remember? You did this to yourself. Her dawning voice made me jump and started crying again. The only thing you can do now is avenge yourself. Hanging them, kill them, or why not both? Too bad that won't help bring your life back. She laughed. Her laugh echoed through the large, empty house and silently vanished. She was right. I will find joy in causing misery to the people who hurt me. I walked through the walls leading me outside, and I squint my eyes from being exposed to the brightness of the sun. I was still stuck in my same body, that same little girl. It disgusted me. However, years have passed, and thus on the inside, I am a grown woman. Laura and everyone would be adults now. I wish I was still alive. I got teary. Be strong is what my parents would say. I don't know if it was also my parents' fault because of the cause of my death. At the same time, they still sent me letters and of their time there. So they thought of me when they were away. But they just spent their whole time away from me, their only daughter. My parents are dead. After my death, they quit and spent their time at home like a normal family. The irony, I thought. You decide now to be a normal family? I thought to myself constantly. They prayed for me every day, not missing a single day. This protected me from all the horrible ghosts. I thought of killing the ones who left me one at a time. Maybe a slow death as well, who knows? Laura and the bully along with his friends. I even thought about killing Stanley. Stanley Knuckleberry, my crush. Everyone has forgotten about me. That hurt me just thinking about it. I squeezed my fists, they will pale. I walked to Laura's house, well, more like hovered. Luckily, she didn't move houses, or it would have been difficult for me to find her. I looked at the house and all the memories I had with her crashed into me. Ugh. Talk about visiting memory lane. I took a deep breath and hovered through the door. It still seemed the same. Nothing really changed from what I could remember. I hovering to her room and heard giggles and shouting. Once I made it to Laura's room, I found that all the girls who hated from primary high school were there. It was pretty easy to recognize them from their horrible makeup and outfits choices. This made me angrier. Laura grew up. Her hair was longer and her face was clear from pimples. She's lost weight as well. I can tell any guy would drool over her. Hey Laurel, let's go shopping tomorrow. Haha, sure, why not? She in an unrecognizable tone of voice and flicked her hair. I hope you don't mind me asking, but remember Violet? How weird was she? She wasn't friends with anyone and no one liked her. She said whilst browsing through her phone carelessly. I agree. She was extremely annoying. I can't believe I even hung out with her. I only hung out with her because I felt bad, but also to get close with Stanley, she said with a giggle. Crack. Huh, what was that? Laura said, looking around the room. Suddenly, one of the windows shattered on the floor. The girls stood up and screamed. What the hell, Laura? Dong, look at me. I didn't do that. Someone must have threw a rock through the window. They all looked through the window. No one was there. Well, we better get going. Good luck fixing that window. All the girls quickly grabbed their things and rushed out. Ugh, how did the window break? Who knows how much this'll cost to fix? She said, picking up the pieces of glass. You will die, I whispered. Laura jumped up and accidentally cut her finger. Shit, she said, grabbing her wrist. What was that? She ran downstairs and put on a band-aid. I was in the corner of her room in the shadows. I was so angry I was about to burst and kill her on the spot. But I was patient and waited for the right moment. After Laura cleaned her room, she got ready to have a shower. That was my cue. I followed her to the bathroom. When Laura went into the shower, I was ready. She started rinsing her hair and applying her shampoo. While she was rinsing off, she looked at her hands and there was blood. She looked up and the water had turned into blood. She screamed and panicked. "What is this?" She closed her eyes for a few seconds and opened them. The blood was gone. Laura stepped out of the shower in shock and wrapped the towel around herself. She spotted a flower next to her feet. She picked it up. "Is that violet?" she said, examining the flower, and smelt it. "Smells beautiful. But what is it doing?" Her voice cut as she realized that her walls were covered in the word violet in blood. "Oh my God!" She looked around the walls, panicking and trying to read the words. "Violet. Violet. Violet." She faced the mirror and saw. Laura dropped the flower in shock. "You called?" I said whilst grinning. "Violet? What are you? How are you? Let's just say that. Your time is up." What do you mean?" The room darkened in a blink of an eye, even though it was daytime. All you could hear was Laura screaming and begging for help. No one was there to save her. Her voice cut and all you could hear was her squealing. The room went back to normal after a few minutes. The floor was covered in blood. Laura was found in the bathtub, soaking in her own blood. She was still alive, but not for long. She was suffering, just like I did. I watched her. Her neck was cut open and so was her stomach. I finished her off by stabbing her in the heart and left a violet inside the hole in her chest. I looked down at her. "I guess you've learnt your lesson from repeating my name 3 times. I vanished from the bathroom and made it outside. I suddenly fell on my knees and cried. "You made me do this, Laurel. It's your fault and not mine." I slowly got back up. There's no time for sea crying. I still have more to do. I made it to the bully's house. Took me a day to find where he lived. It seems as though he's having a party with his friends. I guess it's my lucky day. I stared at the house and began to slowly approach the door. As I walked through the door, there was a strong smell of tobacco and alcohol flowing through the house. I might be dead, but it doesn't mean I can't smell my surroundings. I hovered around each room to look for that bully. "What was your name?" "All Jack. Jake. Jackson. That's it." I was just about to turn to the hallway, though something startled me. I've never felt so traumatized in my life, other than my death, of course. "Apple-bottom jeans boots with the FURRR," sang a naked guy running towards the pool and smacking his buttocks multiple times. I found it funny, but also disgusted. So this is what alcohol does to you. I guess I'll never know the feeling. It was hard to find Jackson. There were a lot of people in the house. It was a huge house, almost like a mansion. This gave me the opportunity to haunt a few people. Suddenly, I heard someone yell out, "Jackson, my man." I followed the voice and found him. He looked muscly and big, blonde hair and hazel eyes, though he is still the plain old bully I've always known. He seemed drunk. "Hey guys, how about a game of Bloody Mary?" he said, shouting across the room with a wink. I slowly had goosebumps all over my body. He hasn't changed at all. I clenched my fists and got angry. I don't like this game. It creeps me out," said one of the girls next to him. "Don't worry, Lily. You'll be safe with me, gorgeous," he said, kissing her cheek and holding her close to him. All I could remember is that Bloody Mary mentioned that if someone calls her, she'd give me the pleasure to kill them in her place. "I dare Jackson and Lily to go first," said Tom, one of Jackson's friends. "It's a bet, Tom," he said, grabbing the waist of his girlfriend. "I bet you aren't going to come out of that bathroom alive," he laughed. "We'll see about that," he said, grabbing the camera and a candle with a couple of matches. They slowly approached the bathroom and closed the door behind them, unaware of what's going to happen. "We'll just get back to eating and dancing, guys. Turn the music UPI, woohoo. We'll give them some privacy. We all know they aren't going to play that childish game," he said, raising his beer. They all carried on partying. "All right, baby, we can do this. We'll show them we aren't scared. All right, Jackie, baby," she said, smiling. Jackson lit the candle and closed the light whilst the camera was on video. "Ha," Lily said, looking at the bathroom bench near the sink. She slowly picked up a flower which was near the camera. "Aw, baby, that's so sweet of you," she said, smelling the flower. "It's a rosal." "Oh great, and she's stupid." "No babe, it's a violet. I don't remember putting that there though." "I mean, yeah, it was my plan all along. It's from me to you." "Ah, thanks, Babel." She placed it behind her ear. They both began to chant Bloody Mary in front of the mirror. "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." "Eek, I'm scared," Lily said, biting the inside of her cheeks. "It's a right, baby, I'm here." They waited and stood in the bathroom for a minute and nothing happened. "Babe, this is getting boring." Lily's voice abruptly cut off. "Babe, are you okay? Did you fall over because of your high heels again?" He chuckled, but there was no response. "Babe?" Jackson searched for and opened the lights quickly and found her sitting in the corner of the bathroom near the bathtub. She was facing her back to him. Babe, what are you doing? Get out from there. Stop fooling around, you're creeping me out." She didn't respond. He slowly walked up to her, tilting his head, and tapped her shoulder. Lily's body slowly fell down onto the floor. Her face was almost torn off. Her fingernails were torn off along with the skin on her legs. There, he found a violet poking out from her torn-out chest. Holy sure dash, he covered his mouth, avoiding the urge to throw up. "What the hell is happening, Lily? My God," he said, rushing to the door. "Somebody let me out. Please." "Tom?" he said, banging the door with his fists. No one could hear him from the loud music. He tried knocking the door over. Slowly, a dark figure crept up behind Jackson. He stopped and slowly turned his head. It was Lily. Her blue eyes have now turned to white with red veins sticking out from the edges. Black veins were surrounding her head and body. With his eyes wide open, Jackson yelled in shock, "Lily?" His voice cut off. Jackson's neck twisted and snapped. He was thrown across the room and suddenly became quiet. It's been nearly an hour now, and people were getting suspicious. "All right, guys, it's time we let them out. They're being party poopers," he said whilst opening the door. Everybody started to scream and Tom was confused. He looked into the room and was about to puke. People starting rushing out of the house. "Somebody call the police. I am getting out of here. Wow, look at all that blood." The police eventually came and found blood on the walls with the words, "Violet." Moments later, they arrested Tom as a suspect. Eventually, they found him guilty of the murder since he pressured them to go into the bathroom and other evidence found in the scene. "How pathetic," I said in my head, looking at the dead bodies. I made my way to Stanley Knuckleberry's house. 2 down, 1 to go. I can't sleep. However, I love dreaming. It takes me on adventures I've always wished to be on or places that are made up by my imagination. I tried closing my eyes, but it wasn't the same. I kept seeing blood and darkness. I've always wondered if there be a light that will take me away from this reality. I want to move on. I stood in front of a clothing store while on my way looking for Stanley, my next victim. A red long dress with sequins surrounding the bottom half of the dress. The chest was in the shape of a heart which was strapless with an open back. Gee, I wish I had one of those, at least my size. If I had gotten older and come face to face with Stanley, he'll see how pretty I am and regret everything he has done to me, I said, gazing at the window. If only I could see my reflection again. My mind blurs when I try remembering what I look like. It's a good thing I can show myself to people when I want to. I sighed and hovered away. As I hovered around the streets, I looked at the couples walking past me, happy with their children, holding hands. I just wanted a proper life, I said, wiping the tears away from my eyes. I continued looking for Stanley's place. Let's face it, I have no idea where he is. I couldn't even find any clues to Laura's or Jackson's place. Ugh! Where the hell are you? Suddenly, I got an idea. If the police are onto this case with the mysterious murders, maybe they'll go to Stanley's place thinking he'll be the next victim. I don't know if it'll work, but it's all I got. I looked around and made my way to the closest police station. You know what? I said, hovering. Hovering is too mainstream for a ghost. I slowly rose up higher and higher until the people from below looked like ants. Oh my. I feel like Casperi except the opposite of friendly. I zoomed through the sky and examined below. I spotted a station and dived in. I was making my way to the building when suddenly I lost control. I'm going to crash into the building. I'm going to die. Someone help me. How do I stop? I started screaming, covering my face with my hands. When I moved my hands away from my eyes and took a peek, I was in the police station. Oh right, I'm a ghost, I said, laughing awkwardly. Guess I'm still not used to this. I hovered around the station and looked for some clues. I came across a door with the marking S.K. written on it. I slowly hovered through the door. It was an office. I looked around the room and saw a little board on the wall marking all the deaths that were caused by me and Bloody Mary. Give it up, you aren't gonna find him. Ugh, Stanley's not on here. Where can he be dash? I was cut when the door suddenly opened. I quickly turned around with my eyes wide open. A policeman and policewoman, probably co-workers, came crashing in, making out. It looked like they were eating their faces off. I gagged and tried to concentrate on the room. I still wasn't done searching. But who the hell can ignore all the noises from the corner of my eye? It's like they're having a competition of who can eat whose face off first. I couldn't stop laughing and being disgusted at the same time. Is this how people kiss now? Goodness, I'm not even sure if I want my first kiss to happen at all. Well, it's not like I will have one anyway. I scrunched up my nose as I watched them attack each other. I need to stop them before they get rid of any clothes. I looked around trying to figure out what to move or distract them with. Oh, I go dash. Oh, I didn't know you were this good at kissing. I rolled my eyes. IG. Oh baby girl, wait till I get you on the desk. I heard short giggles and I felt like I was gonna die, even though I was already dead. But I can die at heart. Alrighty, I got an idea, I finally said. I made a few loud noises and made the closed door open so they could be exposed. Luckily, some people walked by the door, their eyes widening. I yanked the door wider. Soon, everyone were taking pictures, laughing, or shaking their heads in disappointment. Dude, what the helly, I said, a man approaching the office. Oh my god. This isn't what it looks, Lee dash. Get out and clear your desks. You are a disappointment to this facility. They both ran out, not making any eye contact. Sorry, boss, I heard one of them saying. He shook his head. So that's the boss, huh? He looks pretty cute, nice and tall. His green eyes and black silky hair. Oh my gosh, Violet stopped drooling over him. It's never going to happen. I noticed myself drooling and quickly snapped myself out of it. Whoa, it's like he was controlling me with his looks. I blinked a few times and walked behind him as he went in the office. I'm guessing this is his office. I feel sorry for him. I wonder what his name is. He sat on his chair and closed his eyes for a few seconds. But he was soon interrupted when a slender woman with blonde hair walked in. Jennifer. Any updates about the murder case? No, I just miss my Stanley boo, she said, slowly walking up to him, smiling. When we get married, I wouldn't want to end up having a last name like Knuckleberry, but I'll deal with it, she sighed, whilst applying her dark red lipstick. Wait, S. Stanley? I clenched my fists, grinding my teeth. It's him. My mind is all over the place, scattered. Do I kill him now? Or do I kill Blondie first? I should kill them both. The light in Stanley's office flickered. Stay calm, you don't know anything yet. Stan, baby, fix that light, she said, flicking her hair back. I can see that, Jennifer, he muttered, rolling his eyes. He cleared his throat and voiced, Look, Jen dash. How many times do I have to tell you? Call me Jen, honey. He cleared his throat. We aren't getting married. Ever. You can't keep calling me baby or pet names. People view us the wrong way, understand? You can't make up fantasies of people at your place of work, he said, typing away on his laptop. But dash, she was cut off. We're just friends. Nothing more, he said, looking up at her, smiling. Jennifer glared at him and swiftly slapped him without a thought. You bastard, she cried and walked out of his office. She mumbled a few words as she was leaving, but I couldn't quite hear. He looked at her walk out with his eyes wide open, holding onto his stinging cheek. Soon he got over it and looked back to his screen and started typing again. Well, that's a shame. Now I can't kill her. Anyways, good thing they aren't together. If they were, then boy, does he have bad taste in woman, I said, crossing my arms. Now, I didn't think I'd get this far into the whole how to kill him scenario. He was my old crush, yet he did nothing about my death either. He didn't even come to my funeral. He was one of my friends too, right? Maybe it was his looks and his charm that got me, or both. I shrugged more and groaned from frustration. I got a little bored thinking of how to kill Stanley, so I hovered out of his office and strolled around the building. I needed some ideas. I want to make his death so gruesome I would remember it for the rest of my ghostly life. I found a man that has fallen asleep on his chair, so I thought, hey, let's have some fun. I found a black marker on his desk and drew a mustache on his face. I then colored one of his front tooth black and topped it off with a monobrow. I laughed so hard I fell through the floor. I slowly floated back up and hovered away. I'm so glad I can grab things. It's the only perk that I enjoy out of this whole death thing. However, I slowly went from smiling to frowning. I got lost in my thoughts. I'm so lonely. I snapped out of my depressing state and noticed Jennifer walk out of her office. I wonder what Blondie has in her office, I said, hovering towards her office. As I hovered inside, I found that her office was extremely plain. White walls, average gray desk with wooden textures, and a black office chair. There were no photos or objects spread out in her room to display her personality traits. It seems like she wasn't interested in decorating. I went through the drawers and cupboards. There was nothing interesting about this office. Just as I expected. A girl like her has no time to fix her office. She's too busy flirting with every guy in this bloody police station. What's her position here anyway? Ugh, what the hell? The room shook a little from my anger and I heard a thump from under the desk. I looked below the desk to see a diary. Now this looks interesting. I looked up from under the desk and noticed tape on the corner of the desk. I flipped through the pages. As I looked through the pages, I stopped to a certain page with a rose as a bookmark. My eyes widened and my jaw dropped. You've got to be kidding me. I backed away, dropping the book and lost track in my thoughts. She. I quickly stormed out of her office, trying to make my way to Stanley. I made my way back to Stanley but suddenly came to a stop. Oh hell! I ran back to the office and pressed the book back under the desk with the tape that was left over. I don't want her getting suspicious. As I made my way back to Stanley's office, I thought to myself, why are you yelling? You shouldn't care about him. The whole plan is to kill the guy. I shook my head and panicked, trying to figure out which office he was in. What do I do now? He needs me. This place is like a maze. Where was his office? Unfortunately, my ability to retain short-term memory is still horrendous. I panicked, looking in each office, hoping that I come across his office. I need to find him. Where are you? I was reading through Jennifer's diary and came across a red rose in between the pages. What's this? So I read it. Dear Diary, Plan A, B and C didn't work, what a hassle. I couldn't get through to him with my flirting, which is a first. I couldn't even persuade him enough to go out with me. Like, who wouldn't want to go out with a sexy individual like me? What's his deal? I'm like the most attractive girl in this office. But you know what, who cares? There's always Plan D, E, F all the way to damn Z. He plays hard to get, so I'll go straight ahead and kill him. Maybe I'll do it aggressively or sneakily by poisoning his coffee, or stab him. So many ways to choose from. When I do kill him, it'll mean I'll be taking his place. I'll be in charge from then on. He's taken everything for me. All my hard work. In the trash. My eyes widened. I suddenly dropped the diary and stormed out of the room looking for Stanley. But I realized that if she came back with her diary on the floor, she would suspect something. So I went back and taped it back. I looked through each office and finally found him. Finally! I floated through the door and saw him peacefully writing his reports. I took a huge sigh of relief. Why am I so happy to see him alive? Why did I care? I came here to kill him, not to keep him out of danger. I could have killed him by now. What the hell, I need to snap out of it. I've killed plenty of people, I guess trying to kill your old crush is just harder. This is taking longer than I expected. You know what, I just want to kill him myself instead of her doing it. That's it. That's the reason why, of course. Though, as much as I tried persuading myself, deep down, I know there was still that warm feeling I have for him from back then. I sighed. If only Stanley wasn't so good-looking. But he hurt me and I can't forgive him for that. I went out of his office and saw Jennifer walking to Stanley's office. What is she tried to kill him now? I went back to his office. What do I do? How do I warn him? If I just randomly drop his things to the floor, maybe they'll both get distracted and freak out, I said, hitting my hand with my palm. What to do? What to do? I looked around the room. After a few seconds of thinking, I got it. Yes, I'll do that. Jennifer entered the room. Hey baby boo, she winked. Didn't I say N dash? Not to call me cough little pet names? Are you okay? Oh my, this is harder than I imagined. There's no handbook laying around to explain how to possess people. How do I control his speech? Oh, I just have a cold, Stanley muttered. Willa right. I was thinking to dash before she could finish her sentence. Stanley cut her off. Oh, look at the time. I gotta go. Where? She said confusingly. To the toilet. Yes, a land's gotta go when a man's gotta go. After that I was thinking we could get away from here, you know? She said, circling her fingers on his desk. And eat lunch? Or maybe M dash? No, I said, bringing both his hands up. Excuse me? She said, shorting an eyebrow up. I mean, maybe another time, he said, and rushed towards the bathroom. She is obviously trying to get him alone so she can kill him. Ugh, you ass. You're always avoiding me. She grabbed Stanley and slapped me. I mean him. Stanley ran out of the office. You better be at lunch with me after your toilet break as an apology. That slap snapped sterilely out of my control and turned back to normal. He pushed me out of his body. I frowned. It was so comfortable and warm in there. Ow. OW. What? Lunch? Toilet? Toilet lunch? What's going on? He said, rubbing his face. He was incredibly confused. What happened? Since when did she wait? Do I need to go to the toilet? He paused for a moment. Yep. Yes, I do. He said, rushing back to the bathroom. What are you doing? Shouldn't you be killing people? I heard a familiar voice around me. Huh. I looked around and noticed a reflection on the window beside me. It was Bloody Mary. What are you doing here? Nice seeing you too. Why isn't that man dead yet? You were simply inside his body. It was a great opportunity. This is not all fun and games. I've been watching you for a while and that man is stopping you from killing him. Do the job I brought you back to do. Lady, I'm working on it, okay? Lady, look here, you little hell spawn. How come it wasn't hard when you killed the others? It's because you hated them. You don't hate Stanley. I do hate him, but did like him once upon a time, and that just doesn't go away. You don't know that feeling. Well, if you don't kill him in the next 48 hours, then I will do it myself. What does he got to do with you? Well, he's working on the case of the murders. I don't want him influencing any other of my murders. He's like a leech. Him and the people he's working with keep taking away the people I want to kill far away from any mirrors. I can't reach them that way. It might look easy traveling via the windows, but it's not. Too long to explain for your pea-brain. Now kill him before I do. 2 days have passed and I know Bloody Mary will strike. I can't let that happen. I will kill him before she does. Even though I've tried doing that for the past 2 days now. I ran out of ideas. Violet, you can't do it. Your brain might allow it, but your heart won't. I hovered into his office and saw him writing in his journal. I was happy to see that he had forgotten about lunch with that crazy blonde. She snapped at him. It was fun watching. It was a good time to do what I came here to do. I clicked my fingers and small, bright flames appeared on my fingertips. I was going to set his office on fire, but I hesitated and blew out the flames. This won't do, he'll suffer a painful death. I want him to die instantly, ugh. I frustratingly hovered away. I heard giggling and stopped in my tracks. I took a deep breath and kept moving. Bloody Mary must be close. I'll catch him before you do. I turned my head back to the voice and found Bloody Mary smirking. She walked straight into Stanley's office. Without thinking, I rushed into his office and found her holding his heart, still faintly moving in her hand. Stanley was on the floor, lifeless and covered in blood. I looked away in pain for a moment. I then turned back to Bloody Mary's face with anger in my eyes. The heart feels magnificent when you can still feel it pumping in your hands. It feels powerful, she said with a grin. Would you like to feel it for yourself? She said, holding the heart to my face with that same smirk. I ran up to her, grabbing her black hair. It felt like straw. How dare you touch me, you child? She yelled, throwing me across the room. She slowly hovered towards me, looking down at me with her pure black eyes. She whispered something, but I couldn't hear her. She said it again. Stanley. What? I looked towards Stanley's dead body, but it wasn't there anymore. Where is he? I looked back towards Bloody Mary and saw black, lifeless hands speed towards me. Bloody Mary grabbed me by the neck and yelled out his name again. Stanley. I suddenly woke up, accidentally falling through the ground. I balanced myself and floated back to the surface. A dream. It felt so real. Stanley. I looked around in confusion. It was a woman's voice. Damn it, what is it, woman? I yelled, turning around. It was just his mother. Oh my, she's grown old. For an old woman, she's got some lungs. Why is she here? I can't believe she's still alive. She hasn't changed a bit. Mom. Stanley got up from his desk and rushed up to her. What are you doing here? He said in a whisper. Just making sure you didn't forget, she said happily. Mom. I already have a bouquet in the drawer, he said, scratching his head. The more the merrier. I picked these violets fresh from the garden, sweetie. She frowned. Plus, she loved violets more. Not your average bouquet, she said, smiling innocently. You're right, Mom, you're always right, he said, smiling with her. Now, as soon as it's lunch break, go there. Just like any other day. I'm sure she appreciates you visiting her. Thanks, Mom. Love you. Oh, and you can dye your hair light brown as much as you want, but you can't hide those gray hairs of yours. He chuckled and gave her a hug. And you can't hide those feelings for that girl. She laughed. I think I won this time. Oh, and tell her I said hello, she said, waving, and walked away. Bye, Mom. He walked back to his office and looked at his watch. Only 10 minutes left, he said nervously. Something white caught his eye in the violet bouquet. He pulled it out and laughed. Mom, you didn't have to. He flipped it open and it was empty. I guess I'll fill it in. He looked up at the time. I still have time. He grabbed a pen and started to write. After he was done, he put it back in the bouquet and sat back on his chair and sighed. Suddenly his window cracked and he turned towards it. Stupid kids, he said, walking towards the window. Who's the she? I can't believe he's seeing someone. You'd. I started to bite my nails. I looked at him whilst he opened the window. What do I do? He's seeing someone. My fists curled up and I got angrier. He didn't deserve that happiness, she said with a smirk. Her feelings took over her and she couldn't control herself. The lights started to flicker and it suddenly went dark. Stanley quickly turned his head away from the window to see what happened. What? I'm gonna break your heart like you broke mine. Suddenly, I saw Bloody Mary grinning behind him with her red glowing eyes in the dark. She was gonna rip him apart one by one. I can't let this happen. Ha! He said, squinting his eyes, and tried to look for the light switch. Before Bloody Mary could grab him, I sped towards Stanley and pushed him. He fell through the window and everything around me went slow for a moment as he fell out of the window. My face went from angry to devastated. As he was falling, I bent over to reach for his hand. His face was so afraid. For a moment, it seemed like he saw me. What am I doing? I kept telling myself. I watched him fall to his death. Before he landed on the floor, I looked away. The amount of pain I felt like death. I fell to my knees. It's all your fault, Stanley. Why couldn't you just live a sad and miserable life? So I could just leave you alone, I sobbed. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I looked up to see Bloody Mary. She nudged her head towards the bouquet. I slowly looked towards it and shrugged her hand off my shoulder. The first thing I noticed was the little note. I'm hoping I could find any clues about that girl, like an address. I wouldn't mind making her my next target. I pulled out the note and read it. I can't believe it. I cried in sorrow and threw it on the floor. Dear Violet, you'd probably laugh at the thought of me writing a letter to you. It's been a while since we've talked face to face. It's been a really long time actually. One, miss you. I'd do anything to see your face again, but that's impossible. You're dead. I've always liked you and I will always have these feelings. I regret not expressing my feelings to you. I was worried you'd reject me. I'm sorry about not going to your funeral. I isn't one to believe it was Real's. Neither could Laura. Honestly, I think Laura was experiencing far more greater pain. She was depressed. She just couldn't process what has happened. She kept telling herself that it wasn't true and that one day she would wake up from this nightmare. But Laura and I had to let you go and move on. I found the courage to visit your grave and haven't stopped doing so ever since. I didn't miss a single day. I talk to you like you're right in front of me and pray that you're in a good place. I won't stop till I shrivel into an old man, because you're an amazing person. I won't stop thinking about you. You will always have people who love you. Love, Stanley Knuckleberry. I wiped my tears away and looked at the mirror in front of me. I looked like a monster. I was covered in the blood and I smelt horrible. At that moment, I realized I was becoming exactly like someone I hated, Bloody Mary. I looked at my shaking hands, the hands I killed my friends with, the closest people I had in my life or even talked to. All this time, I had a chance, but I was bottled up with revenge and anger. I didn't realize that I could have moved on without harming anyone. I realized revenge does not make me feel any better. I'm a killer, I said quietly. I'm not surprised it took you so long to realize that, Bloody Mary said with a sigh. I turned around and saw Bloody Mary smiling at me. You did this to May. You shouldn't blame me, you chose this path. She hovered towards me, placing her hands on my arms and turned me to the mirror. Look at yourself. Then look at me. Not even one difference. Blood covering our clothes and our messy hair. Don't you think? I turned around facing her and spat in her face. I will never be like you, I yelled. You stupid child. She sighed. Accept it, you're in your own hells. Help me kill people. I've been meaning to ask you, but I needed to make sure you were capable of killing Stanley first. Never, I said in annoyance. Well then, your loss. The floor began to crack and pull apart. The floor broke apart. Hot steam came gushing out and I couldn't hover anymore. Felt as if something was pulling my body down. I was stuck hanging on the edge of what was left of the floor. What are you doing? I looked below. It was so hot and I could hear screams. She stepped on my fingers and I couldn't hold on anymore. I can't let GOL. I'm sorry, but your time here is over then. Don't worry, you aren't the first to fail. She suddenly pulled me up and grabbed my neck. I was in midair. Goodbye, Bloody Violet. Pleasure doing business with you. She smiled and let go. I fell into the darkness. Oh, and have fun in hell. She laughed and everything went black. Was this the end of me?